Welcome to June 20th, 2026. The singularity is converging on a duopoly. John Jumper, who shared the 2024 Chemistry Prize for AlphaFold, is leaving Google DeepMind after nearly 9 years to join Anthropic, graciously thanking Demis Hassabis for betting on him 6 months out of his PhD. The exit lands at a brutal moment for his old lab, where morale has slid into frustration and broad discontent, as Google's best model now sits a lowly 5th on the intelligence index, lapped even by China's Jipu, with insiders reportedly conceding the AGI race to Anthropic and OpenAI as GPT 5.6 looms, and warning that only a big shakeup can reverse it. The insurgency is largely open and largely Chinese. Models like Qwen, DeepSeek, Kimi, GLM, and Minimax now command the majority of token use across OpenRouter's top 10, up from under 2% in late 2024. Exhibit A is GLM 5.2, which one-shot a deliberately AI-resistant take-home to beat Claude Opus 4.8 on readable, maintainable code, a win partly down to Anthropic's Fable rollback, leading a former DeepMind VP to anoint it the first open model good enough to be a daily driver. The frontier's reflex is to go dark, as Andrej Karpathy can no longer touch his own open-source repos since his move to Anthropic, what one observer calls the dark forest principle of AI research. Jumper's instincts look sound, as intelligence keeps illuminating the buried and the broken. A self-taught engineer says Claude Code helped him crack Linear A, the Bronze Age Minoan script that stumped scholars for a century, arguing it encodes an extinct Semitic tongue, with Rutgers and Cambridge now reviewing. Biology is being recompiled too, as Texas A&M researchers regrew bone, joint, and tendon after digit amputation in mice with a 2-step FGF2, then BMP2 nudge, and no added stem cells, suggesting mammalian regeneration is merely dormant, not absent. The robots are multiplying and finally growing fingertips. At Figure, machines now outnumber humans, while Hyundai is buying out SoftBank to take full control of Boston Dynamics for $325 million as Atlas humanoids head to a Georgia factory by 2028, and SoftBank rotates the cash into AI infrastructure. The missing sense was touch, which most robot models overlook, so a Berkeley, NVIDIA, and Stanford team built T-Rex, a system that lets a two-handed robot react to touch on the fly, beating the strongest baseline by 30 points across a dozen delicate jobs like transferring an egg or applying toothpaste. Even breakfast is getting optimized, with an ultrasonic sonoreactor brewing espresso in minutes on a quarter of the energy. Less gentle is Ukraine's new Trophy Lab, which opens captured Russian missiles, drones, and vehicles to allied labs as shared knowledge. The hardware war remains geopolitical. Russia is chasing AI sovereignty with a new Moscow state faculty and an ecosystem partly steered by Putin's daughter. Its real obstacle, the advanced chip sanctions, keep out of reach. America's constraint is cash and watts, as giants tap the bond market to fund data centers under a Fed that, with Kevin Warsh at the helm, hints at a 2026 hike that has lifted the 10-year toward 4.45%. While Valar Atomics took its TRISO reactor Ward 250 critical, the first ever airlifted by a C-17, chasing the White House's order for power by July 4th. Culture is the last battlefield. The Commonwealth Short Story Prize is engulfed after a winning entry was flagged as likely AI written, and its publisher defended it by citing Claude's own assessment. Amazon quietly shelved Guadagnino's Sam Altman biopic starring Andrew Garfield, months after sealing a $50 billion pact with OpenAI. Norway is near banning generative AI for children in grades 1 through 7, ages 6 to 13, so they still learn to read, write, and add amid sliding test scores. And the president said he briefly branded Anthropic a national security threat after Amazon, a competitor and part owner, flagged a vulnerability, before warming to Dario Amodei, declining to rule out the Defense Production Act and insisting America still leads China by a wide margin. The acceleration vector, as ever, points spaceward. NASA tapped Eric Schmidt's relativity space for Aeolus, a 2028 Mars atmosphere orbiter that could become the first private mission to the Red Planet and beat SpaceX there. Mars is the destination, but the slope is the story. With orbital upmass climbing so fast, the naive trendline has us disassembling Earth by 2014-44. Even contact is institutionalizing, as UAP Science Council Chair Avi Loeb agrees any alien discovery should be shared with the public. And the ambition runs interstellar, with Elon Musk forecasting $1 trillion times $1 trillion spent on antimatter to reach other stars, to which NASA's Jared Isaacman simply replied, "I support antimatter propulsion." One small step for man, one giant line item for mankind.